This is an incredibly complex and fun roguelike game set in the Dragon Quest universe. You know it's gonna be good, right? Torneko, The Last Hope, is a roguelike game developed by Chunsoft, the ones responsible for the Dragon Quest series and the whole Mystery Dungeon series, like Shiren the Wanderer and the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon games. In short, people who know their stuff. As the title implies, the main character is a merchant called Torneko. He first appeared in the 3rd chapter of Dragon Quest IV. 3 years later, he got his own spin-off in the shape of a series of roguelike style games. There are 3 games in total, the first one on the Super Nintendo, this one on the PlayStation, and the last on the PS2. Sadly, out of the 3 games, this is the only one that got an official release on the West. If you'd like to play the first one, you can probably find a translation patch online, but for what's worth, you don't need to play it to enjoy this one. Neither you need to have played Dragon Quest IV. So when it comes to the story, there's not much. It's pretty simple, and this nicely done introduction does a great job in setting things up for you. Like I said before, our hero's story begins at the 3rd chapter of Dragon Quest IV. Torneko is an arms merchant at the local weapon shop. One day, encouraged by his wife and kid, he decides to follow his dream of opening a shop of his own and becoming the finest weapon merchant in the world. To that dream, one of the characters tells him at a point, "You can't be a fine arms merchant without being a good man-at-arms too." After going through many adventures and the events of Dragon Quest IV, here we are. One of the treasures he found through one of the many places he explored is something called the Joy Chest. It's a magical chest that, when opened, plays a music that has the power to make anyone who listens to it instantly happy. But not too long after discovering that item, things began to take a turn for the worse. Monsters started to appear, and some locations got transformed into magical dungeons for some reason. Being the only one with enough experience to handle those dungeons, it's up to Torneko to find out what is going on and save the day. Gameplay-wise, this is pretty much what you would expect from a good roguelike game. Turn-based, top-down view, leveling system, going down floors with randomly generated dungeons, items and monsters, you know, all the good stuff. There's no permadeath though, probably for the sake of the story. One of the great things about this game is its learning curve. If you're new to the roguelike genre, they'll guide you through all the basics of the game on the first 2 or 3 dungeons. If you already know how things work, don't worry. You can just breeze through those without any problem, and trust me, things get better later on. The complexity of the mechanics in this game make it very interesting because a lot of the time you have to improvise and try to figure out a way with whatever you have in your inventory. To start with, whenever you enter a dungeon, you'll always be at level 1. So if you die or exit the dungeon, it will always go back to 1. The goal? It's simple enough. Make your way through all of the floors and come back alive. Do that and you'll be able to keep all the money and items you found. Die and you'll lose everything. There are a lot of skills, items, spells and monsters to learn about. But don't worry, there's always some NPC around who understands about one or more of those topics. So make sure you talk to everyone you can every time you come back from a dungeon. Since you never know what you're gonna find, every bit of information can be helpful. When it comes to equipment, you can find all sorts of weapons with different effects. Some that hit twice, others that make enemies drop money. You can find arrows that go from piercing to ones that bring enemies over to you, shields that decrease your hunger, others that prevent enemies from stealing your stuff, and all sorts of rings. Some rings allow you to see traps, other prevents equipment from rusting, and there's even one that explodes when you wear it. In fact, there are so many different items that you might play this game through, beat it, and not even see all of them. Now looking at the items, you can find scrolls that have all sorts of different effects, like being able to identify an item, see the whole map, escape a dungeon, and so on. You also have herbs and staves that allow you to change places with a monster and even turn something into bread. There are also pots that allow you to place items on them for different uses, maybe just storage or maybe not. Just be careful when placing important stuff into some pot you don't really know. And lastly, you have bread. As you explore the dungeons and time goes by, Torneko will begin to get hungry. If his hunger drops down to 0, you lose 1 HP every turn. You can chew on some herbs to help, but you will have to find some bread eventually. You don't really want to eat some moldy bread, but if you have nothing else, well, it's probably a good idea to keep it in your inventory. When it comes to dungeons and enemies, there are also more things to watch out for than I'll be able to explain in this video. It's a trial and error process. There are all sorts of traps spread through the dungeons, and they can go from acid rain that will rust your equipment, trapdoors that will make you fall to the next level, and even stupid rocks that will make you fall and drop everything you're holding. A lot of the monsters you know and love or hate from the Dragon Quest series are here. Some of them can dig through walls or kill other monsters in order to level up themselves. Again, there's a lot of variation both in monsters and what skills they can use. But don't worry, because like I said before, there's always some NPC on the game who knows about the different subjects to help you out. And also, this game expects you to try out things for yourself. It actually encourages you to try and cheat, or find some creative approaches to some of the problems. You are expected to try, and you are expected to fail. So why should you play this game? There's a lot to see and a lot to do here. Some dungeons can take an hour or two to be completed, and they really make it feel like things are getting dangerous whenever you go down to the next floor. You can take a break and save the game on some specific floors if you want to, but if you do so and try to cheat by resetting because something went wrong, the game will be able to tell, and it will send you back home when you try to load the same save file again. This is the kind of game that will always surprise you with something new even after having finished it. It's not a fast-paced game by all means. You have to think ahead and very often improvise with whatever you have. You'll probably die more times than you think, and a lot of the times for the most stupid reasons, but you know what? You have a lot of fun while doing so. After you get the hang of it and manage to complete the main story and watch the ending credits, well, that's when the real fun begins. Good luck, you're gonna need it.